What do Brave Girls' Rollin, EXID's Up and Down, Rain's Gang, and Day 6's Meltdown have in common? They are all K-pop songs that have succeeded in Yeokjuhaeng, which literally would translate into driving in reverse or wrong way driving, meaning they gained sudden recognition and popularity at an unexpected time years after their release, and in many cases after a comparatively unsuccessful past. Let's talk about this interesting phenomenon with Claire Marie Lim, music technologist, artist, and faculty member at Berklee College of Music. Hello, Claire.
Welcome back, Claire.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So Claire, how and roughly when did this Yeokjuhaeng syndrome start, and has it become more common recently?
Yeah, so the term Yeokjuhaeng rose to prominence in the Korean music industry around the 2010s, and an example of a well-known case of Yeokjuhaeng would be Rollin by Brave Girls, like we mentioned, which I love as a song, and it came out originally in 2017, but it regained popularity in 2021 after it went viral. But the phenomenon itself of previously released songs regaining popularity has also existed before in other music cultures, and we sometimes refer to it as a song that's called a sleeper hit, especially like we noted, if the song becomes way more successful upon resurgence and it outweighs its initial success. So with regards to becoming more common recently in Korea, I believe what's new in recent years is how digital platforms amplify these songs. So with avenues like TikTok and YouTube, a previously released song is no longer tied to its original release window. So it could really blow up due to social media trends, or maybe an old song being featured on a TV show, or just general listeners rediscovering it and spreading it around. So I do think that Yeokjuhaeng has become much more prominent in the past decade, especially mainly because listeners can so actively contribute to recirculating these songs.
Right, and you just mentioned an example, Rollin, but let's look at some other interesting examples then more in detail. So Day 6 these days are no doubt a well-known K-pop band, but their success also has a lot to do with their Yeokjuhaeng experience. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Day 6 is a great example. So they are indeed, well known already, but their songs didn't always dominate the charts during their initial releases. As an example, though, their track "You Were Beautiful" from 2017 gained a lot of traction in 2020 through social media, and that was already several years after it was initially released. But it ended up charting on the Melon charts at spot number 52. And then it charted again in 2023 and 2024, also within the top 100. So Day 6's recognition through Yeokjuhaeng not only boosted their general popularity as a K-pop band, but also introduced their music to a whole new audience who may not have known of them earlier on. And that helped to propel them even further. So I think it's really a great success story that shows how Yeokjuhaeng syndrome can shape a band's career trajectory.
It does.
Yes, I mean, there are many cases of, when it comes to social media, a lot of old songs coming back to the forefront. I mean, Kim Jong-kook had a trend going around for quite some time as well. And a number of K-pop songs' late success is attributed to, obviously, video streaming, social media platforms. I know that EXID's Up and Down. Honey had a very big part to do with that, right? I remember that her video of her dancing to that went viral, therefore it kind of went back into the loop. Please give us some examples of that and how these media platforms play a role in this reverse trend.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, like we talked about earlier, Rollin by Brave Girls, that blew up after a video went viral of an audience of very enthusiastic soldiers cheering for one of their performances. And as another example, the song Gang by solo artist Rain was memed so heavily on social media that it kind of turned into its own cultural moment in 2020, which was years also after its original release. And just this year, maybe as a more recent example, the song Thank You by Yoonho, that was originally released in 2021, but it gained some renewed attention when lots of fan videos and reaction videos were created. And that was following the re-upload of an old performance video by KBS. So in all of these cases, video streaming and social media platforms have basically propelled all of this attention and allowed this organic fan-driven content to breathe new life into songs. So the community really does play such a big role in, reversed trends.
And I really do think that it's going to continue. We're still going to see a lot of songs that we heard back in the past, maybe first generation, second generation, come back to the forefront and then become trends or somewhat, be present on social media. But what's quite interesting is that there are even songs before we were even born, 70s, 80s, they're gaining popularity again. Why are we seeing it these days? And as well, also interestingly, the younger generation are often, being the most dominant on social media, leading the charge in this wave of popularity. So how come they are attracted to these songs, do you think?
Yeah, it might seem kind of bizarre at first, but like you mentioned, it's really happening thanks to social media, and the youth are great at using that in the first place. And a lot of the formats that are related to that are also very nostalgia driven too. So for example, audition programs and reality shows that are competitions, those often feature classic songs that are used as contestants to showcase their talents, right? And even TV dramas that are set in earlier decades bring back songs that were originally released in those time periods. And as an example of something that's made a resurgence, you might even get a contemporary K-pop group covering an old song. So, for example, the K-pop group NCT Dream released the song Candy in 2022, but that was actually a cover of the song Candy that was originally released by the first generation K-pop boy band HOT. And that was all the way back in 1996. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint an exact reason why these songs are gaining so much popularity with the younger folks, but I think it's for the reasons of social media itself being so prevalent. But also going back to the songs themselves, I think a lot of these returning songs have such good emotional storytelling and melodies to begin with, and they still feel so universal today. So I think they truly do stand the test of time.
And Claire, in many cases, these returning songs, it's a very big surprise for the singers themselves sometimes. But then, similar to the Yeokjuhaeng phenomenon, there are also so-called seasonal songs. So we already expect those songs to make it big again during a specific time period. And for instance, quickly just mentioning a pop artist example, Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You. So that's also happening in Korea, for instance, with Jang Bum-jun, Cherry Blossom Ending. So tell us about these seasonal trends.
Yeah, for sure. Cherry Blossom Ending is a great example. You might even be able to get a sense of it from the title, but it does become very popular every spring. So it's kind of a returning season song for the spring season. And later on in the year, during summer, maybe another example that we could pull on is Red Velvet's song Red Flavor, which is a really energetic, upbeat dance track, and it tends to reappear as well as a summer song. So we could really say that songs like these are tied to the collective memory of listeners, I would say. They have a very strong association with specific times of the year, just based on their lyrical content or their overall music production. So they really almost function like soundtracks to the seasons, and that's probably why they keep appearing.
And from the perspective of the music itself, I would like to know, do you see anything common among Yeokjuhaeng songs? Or are they just good songs? They were initially good songs, but they were just not lucky enough when they released, and then just happened later on, the popularity. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been thinking about this a lot too, and having surveyed many Yeokjuhaeng songs, I do think that many of them do have a timeless quality to them in terms of production. So they are very well crafted to begin with. And in that case, we could argue that they already have had the right ingredients for success. However, they might have honestly just lacked the right timing or adequate exposure to become successful upon their initial release. And sometimes it really just is a matter of luck. So, years later, having the right fan video or the right social media challenge or even a meme can really highlight qualities in a song that we initially overlooked when it was released. So I do think that a lot of Yeokjuhaeng songs that weren't initially that successful just needed another spotlight to truly shine.
I definitely agree with you there because you can also transfer this sort of thing to movies as well. There's a lot of cases where movies are released and upon release they weren't so successful, and then later on they are maybe re-released or they build up what's called a cult following, and then they become more and more popular as the years go by. So I think there are many, and it's just with all songs as well, where something is released but then doesn't get popular until maybe another artist makes a sort of single of it as well, and that second artist makes the song even more popular. So it's great to see that these songs do get recognized eventually. Now, lastly, would you agree that this unexpected late success gives singers or groups this sort of like second chance, let's say? And do you think it's a good idea to capitalize on this sort of thing?
Yeah, so Yeokjuhaeng can definitely revive careers and help a lot of singers have a second chance. Thinking back to Brave Girls and Rollin, I've always been a really big fan of their music, but objectively speaking, Brave Girls as a group wasn't particularly popular compared to a lot of other very strong artists, especially in the late 2010s and the early 2020s. And a lot of people said, and they themselves also alluded to how they were close to disbanding before Rollin went viral. So suddenly they became one of the hottest groups of 2021, and they were basically saved by the rise of Rollin and its return to the charts. So I do think, though, that that kind of success still does come with pressure, and artists need to show that they're able to keep the interest of their fans with their new music without necessarily resting on their laurels. So they really need to act quickly in order to connect with their audiences, in order to avoid just being defined by their past releases or this sudden new sleeper hit that they have. So yeah, in summary, I think the Yeokjuhaeng song can be a second chance. It can also be a significant challenge for artists to build momentum, but hopefully it's a welcome challenge that a lot of artists will see as helping to create success in the long term.
Right, it probably is going to be very welcoming if they do see their hits suddenly going up the charts. And I kind of feel, as a fan of some specific K-pop groups, I have that responsibility to post, videos that could go viral and then help my stars, my K-pop stars, help with that Yeokjuhaeng trend again.
I should do it straight after the show.
Let's do so, Walter. And thank you so much for your insights today, Claire, and have a wonderful week, and talk to you next time.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And thank you, Walter, as always. We're going to see you back here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.